By now, we've traced Machiavelli's steps, dark map of human nature, hidden motives, the triumph of boldness, the seduction of flattery, the endurance of fear, and the illusions of the crowd. But even if you understand all these forces, there remains one final question. How do you keep from being fooled by yourself? This, in truth, is the most dangerous deception of all. For what use is it to see through others' masks if you remain blind to your own? What good is it to resist the illusions of the crowd if you live comfortably inside illusions of your own making? Machiavelli himself hints at this. A ruler, he argued, must learn to see not as he wishes the world to be, but as it truly is. Illusions of goodness, loyalty, or permanence are fatal to the one who cannot bear reality. The same is true for us. We are deceived most easily when we want something to be true, when love blinds us to betrayal, when hope blinds us to danger, when pride blinds us to our weakness. Carl Jung, centuries later, made this inner battle his life's work. He spoke of the shadow, the hidden part of the psyche, where our unacknowledged desires, fears, and flaws live. The more we deny it, the more power it has over us. We project it onto others, seeing in them what we cannot admit in ourselves. To know oneself is not simply to list one's strengths, but to face one's shadow without flinching. Socrates, too, placed self-knowledge at the very heart of philosophy. Know thyself, inscribed at the temple of Apollo, was for him the foundation of wisdom. For without knowing ourselves, our biases, our wounds, our longings, we remain forever vulnerable to those who do. Think of how often manipulation succeeds, not because the deceiver is so brilliant, but because the deceived does not know their own hunger. The flatterer exploits vanity, the tyrant exploits fear, the demagogue exploits resentment, the fraudster exploits greed. Every trap works by finding a weakness we have not yet faced in ourselves. So the final protection, the deepest secret, is not suspicion of others. It is honesty with ourselves. This means asking difficult questions. Where am I most easily seduced by praise? What fears govern my choices more than I admit? When do I trade truth for comfort? What do I most desperately want to believe, even if it's false? It also means building habits of reflection, journaling, meditating, seeking honest feedback, daring to face discomfort rather than fleeing into illusions. To know yourself is to take away the hidden handles by which others might pull your strings. Here lies the paradox, the darker truths of Machiavelli, that people deceive, that crowds mislead, that fear endures, are not finally meant to harden us into cynics. They are meant to awaken us, to see clearly, to live with eyes open, and the clearest sight begins within. The final question is not, how do I stop others from fooling me? It is, how do I stop fooling myself? Because if you can master that, if you can know yourself with ruthless honesty and gentle courage, then no flattery can blind you, no crowd can sweep you away, and no tyrant can control you. You will walk through the world with an inner steadiness that others mistake for power, but which is simply self-knowledge. So I leave you with this reflection. What part of yourself have you been avoiding, and how might facing it make you undeceivable? In our conclusion, we will bring together all 6 insights and ask, what does it mean to live in a world of shadows without becoming lost in them? And how can Machiavelli's dark secrets become not weapons of manipulation, but shields of wisdom? We began with a troubling truth. You can be kind, honest, even intelligent, and still be deceived. Life does not always reward sincerity. It often rewards those who understand the darker laws of human nature. Machiavelli dared to write down those laws. He showed us that beneath the polished surface of words and appearances lies a world of hidden motives, bold gambits, flattery, fear, and collective illusions, a world that if we ignore it, leaves us vulnerable. And so we walk through 6 insights, each one unsettling, yet each one a form of protection. People hide their true motives. What you see is rarely the whole truth. Words conceal, actions reveal. Power rewards the bold, not the good. Fortune favors those who dare, not those who merely hope. Flattery is the oldest trap. Praise can be poison in disguise. Seek truth tellers, not flatterers. Fear is a stronger bond than love. Respect built on boundaries and strength endures more than affection alone. The crowd thinks in shadows. Collective passion is easily manipulated. Truth is often quieter than the crowd. The greatest protection is self-knowledge. To master deception, begin with yourself. Face the shadow within. Taken together, these insights do not invite us to become cold manipulators. They invite us to live awake, to see through illusions without collapsing into cynicism, to recognize masks without hating the people who wear them, to resist deception not with bitterness, but with clarity. The real challenge is not simply to avoid being fooled by others. It is to live in such a way that even when the world lies, you do not lie to yourself. That even when the crowd shouts, you remain steady in your truth. That even when fear tempts you to surrender, you act with both boldness and integrity. This is how Machiavelli's dark secrets can serve us, not as weapons of cruelty, but as shields of wisdom. They allow us to walk through a deceptive world with eyes open, aware, and unafraid. So I leave you with a final question. Will you live as one who waits to be deceived, or as one who sees clearly, who dares, and who knows themselves deeply enough to stand unshaken? If this journey has stirred something in you, if it has challenged you to see the world with sharper eyes, then I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe, share your reflections in the comments, and join this community where every week we explore the questions most people are too afraid to ask. Because the world does not need more people living in comforting illusions. It needs people like you, awake, discerning, and unafraid of the truth. Picture this. A crowd gathers in a city square. One voice begins to shout. Another echoes, and soon hundreds are chanting the same words in unison. Rational individuals dissolve into a collective force. What none of them would dare to say or do alone becomes possible when they are part of the crowd. Machiavelli observed this centuries ago. He knew that while individuals can be wise, reflective, and cautious, the masses are fickle. In the Discourses, he wrote that the people are by nature impressionable. They are quick to hope and quick to despair. For this reason, rulers, whether virtuous or corrupt, often turn to spectacle, rumor, and public rituals to steer collective emotion. This is what I mean when I say the crowd thinks in shadows. Thinkers after Machiavelli deepened this insight. Gustave Le Bon, the 19th century psychologist, argued in The Crowd that once individuals merge into a group, they regress to a more primitive state of mind, suggestible, emotional, and impulsive. The crowd has no memory, he wrote, only moods. And modern psychology confirms it. We are far more likely to adopt beliefs, emotions, and behaviors when we perceive them as shared by a group. The crowd can uplift us, inspiring movements of justice and courage, but it can also mislead us, driving waves of hysteria, conformity, or violence. History is filled with chilling examples. The witch trials of Europe and Salem, where fear and rumor led entire communities to condemn the innocent. The rallies of Nazi Germany, where spectacle and mass fervor drowned out individual conscience. Even in more ordinary times, consider how financial bubbles form, crowds of investors convinced that prices will only rise until the illusion bursts. Machiavelli's genius was in seeing that rulers who understand this can control far more than those who rely on reason alone. Men are more moved by what they see than by what they understand, he noted. Appearances outweigh substance. A leader who stages dramatic gestures, who feeds the crowd with symbols and promises, will outmaneuver one who appeals to calm logic. And isn't this still true? Think of social media storms, where outrage spreads faster than fact. Think of advertising campaigns that sell not a product, but a feeling of belonging. Think of politics today, where candidates rise not on policy, but on spectacle, slogans, and performance. So how do we protect ourselves from being fooled by the crowd's shadow thinking? First, by remembering that truth is often less loud than illusion. The crowd amplifies emotion, not accuracy. What feels powerful, what everyone seems to believe, may in fact be hollow. Second, by stepping outside the collective current. Kierkegaard once said, "The crowd is untruth. To think authentically, we must sometimes be willing to stand apart, to risk the loneliness of holding an unpopular truth." And third, by recognizing how much we ourselves long to belong. Conformity is not only external pressure, it is an inner desire. We want to chant with the crowd, to be part of the wave. To resist this pull requires not only intelligence, but courage. Machiavelli sets warning, then, is that the greatest deceptions are not whispered in private rooms. They are shouted in public squares. To never be fooled again, we must see through the dazzling illusions of mass belief, asking not, what does everyone feel, but what is actually true. So reflect for a moment. When have you found yourself swept along by the passion of the group, only to later realize that the crowd was blind? And when might you have silenced your own inner voice simply because it was drowned out by the roar of many? In the next and final core insight, we turn inward, for even if we understand deception, manipulation, and the shadows of the crowd, there remains one last frontier. There are few sentences in all of political philosophy more infamous than this one. It is much safer to be feared than loved. With that single line, Machiavelli earned his reputation as the cold prophet of power. Yet when we pause and look closely, what he was offering was not cruelty for its own sake, but a clear-eyed observation of human behavior. Love, he argued, is fragile. It depends on affection, memory, reciprocity. People love you so long as you continue to please them, so long as their interests align with yours, so long as nothing is demanded that costs them too much. But fear endures. Fear cuts through shifting emotions and secures obedience even when love has cooled. History offers countless illustrations. Roman emperors showered the people with games, bread, and spectacle, winning waves of affection. But when famine struck or war dragged on, That love quickly turned to hatred, and the emperor's life was suddenly at risk. By contrast, a ruler who inspired fear through discipline, through reputation, through control of the army, often lasted longer. Psychology confirms this hard truth. Studies show that fear is more primal than love. It activates survival instincts, overrides reason, and anchors behavior more deeply than affection. We can ignore the voice of someone we love. We rarely ignore the one we fear. Yet, as Machiavelli knew, fear has its limits. A ruler who relies solely on terror risks rebellion, push people too far, and fear mutates into hatred. And hatred is more dangerous than either fear or love. The art, then, is balance, to be feared enough that one's power is secure, but not so feared that one becomes intolerable. This idea unsettles us because it contradicts our moral intuition. We want to believe that love is the stronger bond, that kindness wins loyalty, that trust builds permanence. And often, in close personal relationships, this is true. A family, a friendship, a marriage cannot survive on fear. But in the larger world, politics, business, mass movements, Machiavelli forces us to confront how quickly love evaporates when tested. Nietzsche adds a piercing compliment here. He warned against the slave morality that prizes only gentleness and forgiveness while secretly resenting those who wield strength. A life governed only by the hope of being loved, Nietzsche might argue, is a life at the mercy of others' approval. It is weak. To live fully, one must not merely beg for love, but stand firm enough to be respected, and yes, even feared. Think of your own life. Have you ever tried to be endlessly pleasing, endlessly kind, hoping that love and approval would protect you, only to find yourself overlooked, ignored, or even mistreated? Love without strength often collapses, but strength, when paired with integrity, can create a respect far sturdier than fleeting affection. So what does this mean for us? It does not mean we must become tyrants, instilling dread in everyone around us, but it does mean we must recognize the limits of love as a shield. If you wish to never be fooled again, you must notice when someone claims to love you but treats you carelessly. You must understand that fear, in the form of healthy boundaries, consequences, and firm presence, often secures more reliable respect than affection alone. Machiavelli's unsettling wisdom is this: the bonds of love are delicate, the bonds of fear are durable. If you wish to navigate a world filled with shifting loyalties and fragile promises, you must not rely solely on being loved. You must also learn to be respected, and when necessary, to inspire the kind of caution that makes betrayal unthinkable. So I leave you with this question in your own life. Are you too focused on being loved when what you truly need is to be respected? In the next part, we'll widen the lens away from individuals and rulers toward the larger forces that shape societies. We'll ask why entire groups, even intelligent ones, are so easily manipulated. There's a peculiar weakness in human beings that even the wisest often fail to escape. It is not fear. It is not greed. It is the sweet intoxication of flattery. Imagine a ruler in a Renaissance court, surrounded by advisors, servants, and petitioners. Every voice that reaches his ear praises his wisdom, his mercy, his unmatched vision. To doubt himself would seem almost impossible. How could so many intelligent men all agree on his greatness? Yet Machiavelli, who served in those courts, saw the truth, these men did not love the ruler's wisdom. They loved their own advantage. Praise was their weapon, and the ruler's vanity was their battlefield. In The Prince, Machiavelli warns that nothing is more dangerous for a leader than to be surrounded by flatterers. The ruler must find a way to hear the truth without being drowned in sweetened lies. Otherwise, he becomes the easiest of victims, the one who believes in his own invincibility. But this danger is not confined to kings and princes. It is ours too. Think of how easily we are moved by praise, the compliment that makes us lower our guard, the admiration that makes us trust someone more than we should, the reassurance that blinds us to their hidden motives. Why does flattery work so well? Because it appeals to our deepest hunger, the need to feel seen, valued, significant. Aristotle once said that man is a social animal, and our sense of worth is always mirrored in the eyes of others. To be told we are wise, kind, beautiful, or strong awakens a pleasure so great that reason itself can be lulled to sleep. And the flatterer knows this. In workplaces, a subordinate may praise the boss's brilliance, not out of truth, but as a way of currying favor. In relationships, someone may exaggerate affection to gain trust or control. On social media, influencers and brands flatter us constantly, telling us we are unique, special, deserving, all while nudging us to buy, to follow, to obey. Even Plato, centuries before Machiavelli, saw flattery as a dangerous art. In his dialogue, Gorgias, he compared it to cookery. It pleases the tongue, but does not nourish the body. It gives the appearance of care, while offering nothing of substance. The tragic irony is that the more power someone has, the more vulnerable they become to flattery. A king, a celebrity, a leader, even a parent or teacher may be surrounded by people too afraid to speak truth, too eager to please. And so the powerful often live in illusions carefully constructed for them. How then can we avoid being fooled? Machiavelli offers a surprisingly practical answer: deliberately invite contradiction. The wise ruler, he wrote, should select a few trusted people and give them permission to speak the truth, even when it is harsh. To silence all criticism is to guarantee one's own downfall. For us, the lesson is similar. Cultivate relationships where honesty is valued more than comfort. Learn to ask not who praises me, but who challenges me. Notice who dares to disagree with you. They may be the ones who respect you most. The deeper practice, though, is inward. It is to recognize how much we crave validation and how easily that craving blinds us. The next time praise comes your way, pause and ask, is this truth or is this strategy? Is this about me or about what they want from me? To never be fooled again is not to reject praise entirely, but to treat it with caution, to remember that the sweetest words can be the sharpest hooks. And so I ask you, when was the last time you believed a flattering voice that later betrayed you? And how might your life change if you measured trust not by how someone praises you, but by how honestly they confront you? In the next part, we will turn to Machiavelli's most infamous teaching: is it better to be loved or feared? His answer remains one of the most unsettling insights into human nature. Let me tell you a story. In 1512, Florence was in turmoil. Its ruling family, the Medici, had been exiled for nearly 2 decades. The Republic had taken their place, and among its loyal servants was a man named Niccolò Machiavelli, a civil servant, a diplomat, a thinker. He believed in the republic, in civic virtue, in the careful balance of power through good governance. But when the Medici returned to power, in a dramatic reversal, everything changed overnight. Machiavelli was dismissed, accused of conspiracy, imprisoned, tortured. All his years of loyal, honest service meant nothing. What did matter? That the Medici acted boldly, that they seized the moment when it came, that they did not hesitate. This is where Machiavelli's second dark secret emerges. In moments of decision, power rewards the bold, not the good. We are taught from childhood that goodness will be rewarded, that if we are honest, kind, and fair, we will rise. Yet Machiavelli saw the opposite again and again. Those who acted with hesitation often lost, while those who dared, even at the risk of being ruthless, often gained everything. In The Prince, he wrote that fortune is a woman, and to master her one must be bold, even aggressive. Passive virtue, he believed, is not enough. A leader, or anyone who wishes to survive in a dangerous world, must have the courage to seize opportunity without waiting for perfect conditions. Centuries later, Friedrich Nietzsche echoed this idea in a more existential form. He admired those who could say yes to life, who had the will to power, not in the sense of domination over others, but in the courage to create, to act, to risk themselves in the act of becoming. In contrast, Nietzsche lamented the last men, those who seek only comfort, safety, approval, people who would rather be harmless than powerful, people who would rather wait than leap. The lesson here is not that morality doesn't matter, but that morality alone does not protect you. You can be a good person and still be crushed by the boldness of someone with less conscience, but more courage. You can be passed over, silenced, or manipulated if you never dare to assert your own will. We see this in politics, in business, even in relationships. The person who negotiates hard, who makes the first move, who dares to speak their desire, often wins, not because they are better, but because they acted when others hesitated. And here lies the subtle, painful truth. The world often rewards action over intention. It does not ask if you meant well. It asks if you moved. To never be fooled again, we must stop assuming that virtue will naturally prevail. We must learn to recognize that boldness is a force of its own, and that those who possess it, even without virtue, often command outcomes. But here's the deeper question. Can you be both good and bold? Can you act with courage and conscience? Machiavelli might have been skeptical. Nietzsche would have challenged you to try. And perhaps the most enduring lesson is this: to protect yourself in a world that rewards the daring, you must be willing when the moment calls to dare. So ask yourself, what have you lost by hesitating? What moment passed you by because you waited to be certain, to be ready, to be approved? Boldness does not mean cruelty, but it does mean risk. It means saying, I will act, even when the outcome is unclear. It means stepping into the arena, knowing you might fail, but knowing that doing nothing is a failure too. In the next part, we'll explore one of the oldest and most seductive traps in the human story, flattery, and why even the wise are so easily fooled by it. There's still a strange, uncomfortable truth about life that few of us want to admit. You can be kind, honest, and intelligent and still be deceived. History is filled with stories of good people who were outmaneuvered by those who understood the darker side of human nature, the loyal advisor betrayed by the king, the trusting friend misled by a hidden agenda, the ordinary citizen manipulated by those in power. And in our own private lives too, the times we've realized too late that someone's promises were hollow, or that we were being guided not by truth, but by persuasion, by pressure, or by lies dressed as virtue. And so the haunting question arises, why do the cunning so often triumph over the sincere? Few thinkers dare to confront this question as directly as Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance statesman who has been called both the father of political science and the teacher of deception. His name itself has become a synonym for manipulation, but to read him carefully is to realize he wasn't celebrating trickery for its own sake. He was exposing how power truly works, stripping away illusions so we might see the world without the comforting mask of morality. To many, this felt dangerous, even evil. Yet perhaps Machiavelli's greatest secret is not how to deceive others, but how to stop being deceived ourselves. That is the journey of this video. Together we'll explore 6 dark but illuminating insights drawn from Machiavelli and other great thinkers that can help us recognize manipulation, resist being fooled, and navigate life with wiser eyes. These will not be lessons of blind cynicism, nor encouragements to become ruthless. Rather, they are truths about human nature that once seen cannot be unseen, truths that can protect you, empower you, and help you understand why the world so often works in shadows rather than in light. So let's begin this exploration. If you've ever been betrayed, misled, or left wondering how you could have been so blind, this may be the perspective you've been searching for.